Okay, so I'd like to welcome Susana Fonticoba. She's a Collaberex facilitator, and she has her own coaching practice. She is specialized and been an expert in blogging and writing. That's something that comes naturally to her versus me. Uh, I'm more of a math person than I can't do the crossword puzzle. And Susanna, why don't you take it from here? You're much better at introducing yourself than I am, and welcome. I'm so happy that you're doing this for us.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to talk to you all about, a topic that everyone loves to hate. Maybe not everyone, but I love it. I love writing. I've always loved writing, and I know everyone has a different approach to it. So I'm hoping today to give you some honest to goodness tools and a system and a process so that you can, approach blogging differently. As Jonathan mentioned, I'm a business strategist. I've also written forever. I've always written in some form of capacity in my career. I love content writing. I love blogging. And hopefully I'm going to give you some tools that is just going to make life a little bit easier for you. So as a result of participating in today's workshop, you will be walking away with draft materials for your new blog. So grab paper and pen, a digital notebook, your phone, Post-it notes, whatever. And even if you think you're never going to blog, let's just give it a shot. It'll be fun. So you can see it's not as painful as it seems. So first I want to cover why should you even bother blogging? So we're going to start at the beginning. Blogging is part of your overall content marketing strategic plan. So here I'm showing why delivering consistent content is important. As you can see, it's not just about advertising your services. Blogs are your opportunity to enlighten your reader and start to build trust. So whether you're talking to fans who don't really know you yet and are starting to get to know you, they're starting to see if you're the right mix for them. Prospects who are thinking about working with you so they can better understand what you do and if you're a good fit for them. And also clients, even though people are already your clients, it's a good way for them to continue the relationship, continue to feel comfortable with you, and also continue to, referring people to you who are just like them. So the first step in demystifying the process of blogging is to realize how simple it is. It's a way for you to deliver consistent information that is of value to your ideal client. You get to talk to your audience through a casual piece of writing. It gives you lots more room to show your personality and knowledge than a quick social media post. How long or short it is up to you, as long as your reader derives value. It lives on your website and gives you freedom to communicate updated information beyond your static website pages. Why should blogging be part of your marketing activities? As you may have guessed, it all starts with Big Daddy Google. Search engines do not visit dusty old websites. They crawl the internet looking for new, meaty information. So publishing fresh blogs a couple of times a month accomplishes that. In addition, when someone types a question into Google and your blog answers that question, it could be your blog that comes up as a search result, thus introducing your company to a new potential customer. And it's an elegant way for your audience to receive information without their having to sign up or contact you first. When you consistently offer great information, fans appreciate you as an authority and it uplevels your reputation. It also opens the door for strategic partners to ask you to work on a project together or to maybe ask you to speak at an event. Overall, my favorite use of a blog is to give you plenty of room and freedom to tell your story your way. Since blogging is only part of the content machine, here's a visual on how it connects. When you publish a fresh blog on your website, you'll want to post an invitation on your social media channels with a link to read it on your website. You also want to introduce the topic in your email newsletter with a link to your blog. The purpose of social media and email campaigns is to drive traffic to your website. Remember, you don't own the contact database inside your social media account. And since your continuing goal is to add to your contact database, you also want to use social media to encourage signups to your newsletter so that you have emails in your possession. Now fans will hear about your blog when they check their inbox. If you're unsure how to structure a blog post, you can start by following a very simplified version of the buyer's journey, the awareness, consideration, and decision phases. This gives you a standard format to follow and helps you focus on the goal to include the key elements. So in the awareness phase, your blog shows visitors that you are well-versed in the challenge they're hoping to solve. In the consideration phase, your blog will highlight services you provide that will meet their goals. And in the decision phase, your blog looks and sounds like you and gives the prospect a good understanding of your brand and personality. So why does blog writing feel unpleasant? Producing a blog consistently can be a major pain if you don't have a system or a process. It's a pain to produce topic after topic. And now it's one more task on your growing to-do list. So as an analogy or comparison, one example of a common process that we can all relate to, hopefully, is meal planning. You search for recipes, jot down the ingredients, buy the items, and now you know what you're having for dinner that week. When we have a system, the work flows consistently and it becomes part of our normal process. While we don't usually get a sale as a direct result of one blog, the same goes for other methods of marketing. A sale doesn't come from one social post or one brochure. It's cumulative. So the whole experience of sharing our value and our brand will produce a sale in good time. If you're not confident in your writing skills or simply don't enjoy writing, I have good news. And if coming up with new ideas all the time feels tiring, I have good news there too. When we talk about brands, an easy way to think about it is the personality and style of your company. Your blog will reveal your brand through your choice of words, your tone of voice, and your natural style. With that in mind, just write the way you speak to prospects and clients. The goal of a blog is not to apply for a writing award. It's to provide helpful information to your audience. Even better news, my secret weapon is to listen. What words and phrases do your best clients use all the time? What are the questions your best prospects ask often? If you listen and make notes on what great customers and fans say to you, the blog practically writes itself. Remember that being consistent encourages comfort, which is essential to building trust. So years ago, I knew a business owner who committed to write a blog every Friday. For the first 3 weeks, it went well, but by the 4th or 5th week, her blog would say, "Wow, it's Friday already, and I'm not really sure what to write about." Yeah, she published that. Awkward. Don't fall in the trap of just writing about anything or whatever pops into the mind so that you can say that you blogged. You always want quality over quantity. With all of that in mind, when you have a repeatable system or process, you can put things on autopilot and remove the stress. So I'm going to show you the process I use myself. I was having dinner at my sister's house one evening, and she always turns on Jeopardy after dinner. That's her process. When the show came on, I screamed, "That's it, Jeopardy!" And of course, she thought I was having a stroke. But the beauty of the structure of that board was everything I needed. In your new blogging process, you're going to start with that top row of categories. Your blogging theme board can start out looking like this. So for now, just focus on the top row and think of different ways and angles to talk about your product or service. Humanity is what I call the topics that revolve around you as the owner of the company. How did you get started? What's your personal connection to your product or service? Yes, telling the audience about you and your core values and mission and personal connection is an excellent way to build a relationship. Uniqueness is about your unique value. What do you bring to the table that other companies cannot? Challenges address the problems your clients are trying to solve and possibly ways that they've tried to solve the problem that ultimately failed. In the stories column, this is where you tell the story of how real clients benefited by working with you. The last column can be used for what's happening in the industry or your speaking engagements coming up or any seasonal promotions. Now, I told you you would be starting your new process today, and here's where we're going to be ready to begin. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write out your theme categories because they don't have to look anything like mine. I'm going to set the timer, so go ahead and write out your top level themes that make sense for your business. Time starts now.
Excuse me, Susana.
Yep.
Hi, Jessica asked if you could go back to the theme slide.
If I do that, it's gonna mess up my fancy timer. So I'm gonna,
Okay.
I worked really hard on this timer, but I'll flip back to it in a second and we'll talk more about it, but thank you. Okay, time's up. And I'm going to flip back to my board just for a second. So while I'm showing, and again, these are just my categories. You don't have to look, yours don't have to look like mine. This is what I came up with. This is my way of showing like the different angles that you could talk about. So while, I'm showing that, if you guys want to put in the chat box, maybe your own categories that are not the same as mine that you thought of, because I would love to see what you wrote. And quite frankly, if I think it's good, I'm just going to steal it.
Susana,
Yeah.
is there like a page where, because I'm very also intrigued to learn about your system here, the humanity, uniqueness, challenges, stories, news. I get the stories and the news. Was there a page on explaining the humanity, uniqueness, and challenges?
Yes.
Yeah, that. There you go.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I couldn't think of a better word than humanity, but you as a, your company as it relates to a human being, that's the thought process there. People like to do business with people, not really, a cold entity of a company. They want to know the people behind the company, and that's where you get to express the people behind the company. It could be, and I'll talk more about what's included in other slides. So you'll get to know more about my examples. So I'm going to check the chat. business growth, culture transformation. I'm going to steal all these ideas. Thank you, you guys. Awesome. I love this. I love this. Great. Super. I love that you are working on it. And I hope it felt good to work on it. I hope if you feel like you're moving along here. Okay. So congratulations on getting the ball rolling. Now that you have themes running across the top of your board, the next step is to fill in as many topic cards in each column as you can in one sitting. How do you do that? What are questions you're always answering? Like if I answer this question one more time, I'm going to spit, that kind of thing. What do you want to draw your audience's attention to? What are real life examples of your work? If you set aside focused time on this throughout the year, I promise you can come up with enough blog topics to cover a year, months in advance. When I help clients with this, we often come up with a year and a half. It doesn't mean you write all the blogs out in one sitting, but now you know what to write about, which is the hard part. So here's a very simple example of what your board can look like now. If you're blogging once a month, if you're using something like this, you're ready for a whole year. So examples that I can come up with for these columns are like in the humanities column, like, why did I start the business? Well, how did I get here? What was my mission? What was my vision? What was my hope for working with clients? And then if you have a team, spotlight the members of your team, talk about them. People want to know the people behind the company. In the uniqueness column, it's about your education, your certifications, your skills, the years of experience you had in the field. It could be how you work. What is your process? This is not where you give away all the secret proprietary stuff in your company. You can hint that you have a proprietary process. You don't have to spill the beans, but you can say, yes, I have a system, I have a process. So making people feel comfortable that you know what you're doing, talking about results and guarantees. You know, in the challenge column, it's like all the problems your clients have come to you with. What was the trigger to that problem? What was it that drew them to work with you? Like, how did the pain get so bad? What was that tipping point of their pain? And your personal knowledge of the pain, which maps back to the humanities section. And then stories is you know, expected. Client stories before and after. What was their transformation like? How did you bring a client from not being sure to work with you to work with you? Like, how did you get them there? And then of course, if you have, hopefully you all have testimonials, you can use your testimonials there as well. So hopefully that's giving you lots of great ideas. And as expected, I want to stop here for a minute and give you time to jot down your own topic cards on the themes you just came up with. So I want to see if you can create 2 topics for at least 3 themes that you had come up with. So the time starts now. Okay, time's up. So write in the chat box, how many topic cards did you come up with? Just type the number in the chat box. And if you would like, if somebody wants to just like speak up and share, just share one topic that you thought of that's very unique to your business. 15, Jessica, way to go. 5, that's all good. So write in the 10 is great. Write in the chat box, just an idea of what you came up with. Tim says, how I got here, background and motivation, what makes us unique, common questions, success stories, all good. David got 4, nice. Very good. Cool, awesome. I hope that was fun. I hope that made you kind of stop and think in a fun way, and that you weren't stressed. Okay, so let's move on. So now with this Jeopardy board concept, you can create it with Post-it notes, a legal pad, your planner, or any electronic tool. Here's what I was working on with a Google spreadsheet. These are my actual themes and topics. And as you can see on the client success stories, I'm mentioning the name of a client that I worked with. And when I work with a client, I'll kind of do a little summary of, the salient points of how I worked with them, and that'll go in the blog. And yes, I change their names. I never call out someone in my blog with their real name, because talking about their challenges. So I protect everyone's identity. So these are my actual themes and topics. And as you can see, I came up with 30, which gives me more than a year. Then, of course, I had to go all fancy and put it on Trello, because I like this as a project management tool. And I like that I can connect links and images to the cards, so it becomes a repository of all the pieces of the puzzle. Remember that your blog post should include at least one major image to go with it. And you can use that image in your social media and email campaigns to tie them all together. And when I write blogs for my clients, I also create their images on Canva. So as I said earlier, the advantage of a blog is that it gives you lots of room to express different perspectives on the topic in question. So take the thing that you're selling, your offer, and think of all the angles you can use in your blog like this. So these can be all different blogs, your personal story as it relates to your offer, a client transformation story, how your offer is different than others, why other ways to solve the challenge don't work as well as your way, facts and data proving that your service really works, and why your service or product is going to solve the client's problem. Patty, I'll send you my handouts. So in between working on your Jeopardy board, you'll want to fill a folder or notebook throughout the year with a whole collection of subjects. And a great way to do that is to note the themes that keep coming up in conversations. So what are your best clients' top questions? Notice I didn't say what are all the questions you ever got. The best clients that you'd love to clone, what are they asking about? So those are great topics for a blog. Your ideal prospects' deepest challenges, your top customers' biggest goals, and your own personal connection to the client and to the company. Just when you thought you arrived on easy streets, here's the hardest part: creating the headlines. If the headline is not specific or enticing, it won't get noticed at all. So your job is to create a title for each blog that people will want to be curious enough to open and read. If you check out what's common in websites and publications, it ranges from boring to sleazy. The challenge is to spice it up without betraying your brand voice. Here's some common examples just to get you thinking. And there's tons more. So as you might expect, this is your last turn of working on your blog work. I'm going to give you 1 minute to come up with just headlines. Now, they could be partial headlines, introductions, like I just saw you, just like something like this. It could be like that. You can stick to serious content and you can match it back to the themes you thought about earlier, or just use this as an exercise to, build up your skill. And you can just purposely come out with funny and silly stuff just so that you could become more comfortable with inventive titles. So your 1 minute starts now. Okay, time's up. And I love the fact that you guys anticipated what I was going to ask you to do, and you put some great headlines in the chat box. I love it. So it's fun, right? It's kind of challenging to exercise your brain that way. I actually began 2022 with a list of headlines, and then I challenged myself to write the blogs afterward. It absolutely got me started for the first half of the year, and it was fun to kind of work backwards. So now here's another tip. For anyone who feels they are an awkward writer, it may help to follow a standard format or a template until you become comfortable and creative. This is just one idea. You can start with a pain or challenge that your service fixes. You can define and explain your service and how it relates to that specific challenge. You can highlight how the client specifically benefits from working with you, tell a success story, the before and after, and then finish with a testimonial. I take the time quarterly to refresh my Jeopardy board and my headline library, and I like to stay at least 2 months ahead with prepared material. And my all-time favorite tip is recycling older material into refreshed blogs with a fresh perspective and new information. Before you know it, you'll get into the groove of preparing your themes, topics, headlines, so you always have an overflowing bucket of material to work with. Then use your calendar to decide what gets published when. I typically write a rough draft where I spill out all my thoughts. It's usually quite long. It's about 800, 900 words. I let it marinate overnight, and I go back the next day to reread and edit it down for clarity and length. So now it's about 650 to 750 words. Next, I create an image or two in Canva to go along with it. And finally, on the third day, I read through it again, give it a final polish, and publish it. Lastly, I link it back through my social posts and my email campaigns. I don't ever let one blog post go to waste. Here are my favorite things to do with my blogs, and my blogs go back at least 10 years. On the right, you see the lead magnet that's on my website right now, which was created from 4 blog posts summarized together. I hope this gives you lots of ideas. So again, refresh last year's topic, or I go back 2-3 years, I refresh it, I update it, and I put it out again. I create lead magnets. You can start out with a blog post and make that into a presentation. I intend to take this presentation and make it into blog posts, so it all gets recycled and reused and repurposed. And the most important thing is that every single blog post that you write should generate at least 2 to 3 social media posts. If you've determined that this is all well and good, but you can't fit it into your schedule, outsourcing it is a viable alternative. However, buyer beware. There is AI software that can generate blogs for you. And don't you want your prospects to read blogs written by a robot? No, not the best choice. You can give out a list of industry topics and hire someone to just write something based on these topics. The problem is they won't write original material. They will scour the web for similar articles, change a few words here and there, and put your name on it. Now, if you want to build trust with prospects, this is clearly not the way to do it. You can subscribe to an industry service that supplies blogs written for you, but your competitors will also subscribe to the same service and publish the same blogs. There goes any attempt at solidifying your brand voice. Or you can hire a writer who writes custom original material based on you and your company. And that's how I help clients. So how do I work with clients? I start out with a strategic content meeting where we take the time to create your Jeopardy board together, building a list of topics to use throughout the year. Every month, I conduct a Zoom interview with you where I ask tons of questions and hear firsthand your thoughts on the topic, as well as use your stories and your experiences to build out the article. I write the drafts and have you review and comment while I create headlines and subheadings and images. And then I deliver the final blog post with all the trimmings. I hope you had a ton of fun doing this. I hope that you see that blogs are not as horrible or scary or terrible drudgery as you may have thought originally. And I would love to answer any and all of your questions. I don't know, Jonathan, do you prefer people put in the chat or just shout it out? I can go.
If people want to either use the reaction button and raise their hand or just physically raise their hand, then I can call on them and then they can unmute and ask their question. Is there anyone that wants to start off? I'll start off with a question and then, here, Gerda. Good.
I didn't mean to interrupt your question, Jonathan.
No, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
So I guess one of my questions is, blogs are becoming more and more used. Sometimes they're, almost come out in newsletters where they're clear marketing, and I kind of personally tune out to them. So my question for you is, what are the most common mistakes you see that people make when it comes to their blogs?
That's like another whole presentation in and of itself. But I think the most common mistakes are that you start to think about you and yourself and what you want to write about. The best thing you can do is keep the focus on your client, on your prospects. What do they want to hear? Because sometimes what they want to really, really hear about may not be exactly your favorite topic to write about, but that's what you need to write about. So keep your focus on the client. What are they experiencing? What do they hate? What do they love? What do they want? What do they need? And go from there. And the secret is everybody wants to be spoken about. Everyone wants to be heard. If I'm giving a presentation and I'm saying, hold all your questions for the end, you feel very disengaged. But if I'm saying, I'm asking you questions, I'm asking you to get involved, I'm asking you to put something in the chat box, so now you feel like you're part of the fun, then people feel engaged and people like it. So think of blogging and everything else as a two-way street, and make sure you keep asking questions of your prospects and clients. Like, what do you want to hear more about? What are your questions? What are your issues? And write about that. I think that's the best thing I can do in general, is just keep the focus on your client and what they really want to hear and what is of real value to them. I hope that answered it. Thank you for that. That was a great. I'm actually going to create a new blog post based on your question. So thank you.
Okay. Eileen and Ted.
Hold on.
Hi,
Okay.
Hi.
Susana. This was great. It was a really super presentation. So
Fabulous.
thank you. We're just
you.
curious, how many hours a week or a month in that at the end when you said, first I write the draft, then I go back and reread it, then I create the image, then I polish it, then I post it. How long is that process for you approximately?
In hours.
In hours, not gonna convert anything. So the reason I do it over a 3-day period is because I will write something and I will think it is the most fabulous thing I've ever produced ever. And then I go back the next day, I'm like, what was I thinking? This is awful.
Oh, we've done that too. Yeah.
Right, right. So you need, when I say you need to let it marinate, I'm not kidding. So the first time I write it out, it usually takes you about, I don't know, hour and a half, depending on how excited I am about the topic. But then I put it away. And then I would go back the next day. If I reread it and repolish it, that's another 45 minutes. So every time I go back into it, it'll be shorter and shorter. And then it takes me time to fuss around with Canva and make a pretty image. I break it up into, subheadings so it's easier to read.
Right.
And honestly, the headline is like the worst part of it, where, all right, what's the headline that people, it's just gonna come off the page and people are gonna be dying to read this. That's really the hardest part.
So 3-4 hours per blog, you would say approximately?
It doesn't feel like it's that long, but it probably
You
is.
just
I'm gonna
described
say
that.
3. Yeah, it probably
Okay.
is. I guess it doesn't feel painful to me, so we'll call it 3 hours. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
yeah, and I do it twice a month. So, but I enjoy it. So,
Right.
Okay, Jose, and then we'll get to Tim.
oh,
Unmute, unmute.
Hold on, I'm muted. There we go. All right, so Susana, love the presentation, so thank you for that. I wanted to kind of talk more about that point where you mentioned talking about the topics that your potential, clients, customers might want to hear about. So how did you make that shift? So when you're starting, who did you reach out to? What did that look like when you were trying to get that data?
honestly, this is not something you need to do that's special. Literally have something to write with next to you when you're talking to people. So if you're doing your one-on-one networking calls, or you're talking to a client to see, hey, how's it going? Just following up with you, whatever conversations you're having in real life, make notes. And I guarantee you, by the time you get off the phone, you're like, this could be a blog post. Because if you hear 3 or 4 people asking the same types of questions, you're like, all right, 3 people ask the same questions, it needs to be answered in a blog. So my advice is like, keep it natural and just listen and make notes. I take copious notes on every conversation, because there's an idea for an article somewhere there. It very often is that every time I finish a session with a client and I have my session notes, I'm like, there's a blog in here. So just like, don't stress about it and keep your mind and your ears open, and you'll see it. I guarantee you from now on, every time you hear something, every time you see something, you're going to say, there's a blog right there. And you'll think of me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Tim,
Tim?
you're up.
Susanna, that was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm revising my website as I do periodically, because my SEO numbers were really down. And I'm wondering, do you find that the blogging drives clients to you directly, or both are good, or causes them to go to your website and helps that part of it in terms of your new business?
Yeah, so sometimes, so here's the part I didn't mention. When you write your blogs, there is a little piece of the puzzle that I left out. If you're the one who does it on the back end, if you're the one who puts it in your website, you need to write a meta description.
Mhm.
And so that meta description, this is kind of like make the jazzy headline, is your meta description should try and of course be about your blog post, but it's all about attracting attention. And so, how to do this or how this doesn't work, the meta description and the headline together, that'll help bring people's attention. So there are times when I'll get an email from someone who saw my blog post. Most of the time, it's a whole thing where people are looking at your blog, but they don't talk to you right away.
Mhm.
And they start looking at other things, and then they see your lead magnet, and then they sign up for your emails. And then eventually they come to that tipping point of the pain is greater than the cost. And that's when they reach out to me. So sometimes they'll see you through the blog post first, but you don't always know that until they keep coming back and they sign up, and then they keep the interest going. They finally reach out.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure. Jerry?
Okay. Jerry.
Oh.
Unmute. Yep.
One of the things that is happening now is everybody's posting on LinkedIn, the LinkedIn articles that you can do in creator mode. And those could or could not be on your blog. And if they're repeated on LinkedIn and you repeat it again on your own blog, does that make a difference that the same content is in both places? Does that turn off SEO? Does it enhance? And because people need to hear things multiple times, what is all of your thoughts around that?
That's a great question. I've been experimenting on LinkedIn. There have been times when there's that LinkedIn feature, but just like publishing your article right in, or your blog right in LinkedIn. I find that I'm not getting as much engagement through there as if I did a regular LinkedIn post and then referenced my blog on my website. But this is where the magic of recycling can come in if you want, and if you have some blogs written from the past, take some of your former blogs, put them on LinkedIn, and then meanwhile, you're issuing new blogs on your website. So that's a great way to have multiple channels of content going at the same time without repeating yourself. So, I mean, any and every opportunity for you to get your voice out there is great. And as I said, I am the recycling and repurposing queen. I can repurpose anything into anything else. So I would experiment and take some former blog posts, put it on LinkedIn, and keep the fresh material on your website.
Thank you.
Thanks. So Susanna, I have a question.
Yep.
And it's on the topic of headlines and like how provocative do you want to get? And would you suggest, and I'll give you an example, saying negative things about your competition, such as, let's say my headline is, I have three choices for a headline. One is networking is a waste of time. The second choice might be your networking group is a waste of time. And the third one might be why your networking group is a waste of time. What do you think would get the, I mean, the purpose of a headline is so they read the blog.
Yeah, I would, given those three choices, I would use why your networking group is a waste of time. I would never mention a competitor. I never, ever want anyone to use any of their marketing platforms as an opportunity to downgrade any other company or organization. That's just not a good look on you, as they say. But I would choose like why your networking group is a waste of time, because now you're like, how does he even know what networking group I'm in? What is he talking about? It gives me more to be curious about. So I guess putting in a little bit more details without being too specific, it's a crazy balance. But I love those examples.
Yeah. So who here gets these requests all the time of guest bloggers? I mean, how fast do you delete them?
In like 0.25 seconds.
Okay. Good. I get those too.
Yeah, it's constant. Like, do you want a guest blogger? I'm like, why? Why would I do that?
Yeah. I have one other kind of headline question. You put in one of the slides, kind of a format of, of kind of standard headlines.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, if I see one more headline that says 5 best ways for a healthier life or for, self-actualization, It just,
Those still
I-
work though, Jonathan. That's why people are still doing them.
You
yes.
took the
I
words
know.
right out of my mouth. I detest them. And I feel like they're so trite, but to Eileen's point, it's exactly what I was gonna say.
Exactly.
They still
Boom.
work because the psychology is, oh, this is gonna be really quick to read.
Yep.
And then, of course, I get irritated when I open the article and there's a million paragraphs of narrative and they finally start to get to the number 1 point. So I skip through all that and I get to the number 1 point. Because if you say, here's the 5 best ways, I expect to see 5. I don't expect to see 7 paragraphs before they ever get to the number 1. So if you're going to do that, be true to that. And say, do like a very quick intro paragraph and then start out with number 1. Because if you do it the way that I've been seeing lately, like that irritates me to no end.
To me, it's like an article in, I don't know, People Magazine or Cosmopolitan, 5 best ways to,
Yeah.
break.
And again, Jonathan, that sells. That's why they're all still doing it.
Hmm.
No matter how many times we see it and we get annoyed. I think all of us have probably even been pulled into clicking on some of those, because if it's a topic you're interested in and it says, 3 foods you shouldn't be eating after 50. Well, I'm
Right,
clicking on
exactly.
that and I know it's going to be a scam, but I click on it anyway. And that's the point. It pulls us in psychologically. So
Yeah,
use them because they
absolutely.
do work.
And also somebody said using a weird number like 9. Instead of the 10 best, you say 9 or 6 instead of 5. And then that just piques your curiosity even more.
Okay.
It's all psychological tricks.
I guess it would be good to say then 5.5 best ways.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sometimes I would do like 3.5 and you're like, what?
Right. Okay.
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here.
Of course. you are.
Awesome.
Of course I am. Now, if we spend 3 or 4 hours writing a blog, and we think of our value at $100 an hour, 150, 75, we all could do our own math. That means if we write our own blogs, it's going to cost roughly $400 or $500. Am I correct?
If you can use that math to come up with that answer, it doesn't mean that's the same answer for everyone, but yeah.
No,
Right,
yes,
you
no,
mean-
absolutely. So am I better off doing something that I know what I'm doing, which is selling my own products if I was a product guy or service, or am I better off working with a blogger to do that and come up with all this stuff and I just spend my day selling my own products? What's your feeling?
Well, my feeling is that you should just hire me to do your blogs, Ed.
There you go. For all of us, I know without a question. But the thing is, does it make sense for some of us to move away from what we naturally do and write business and have a blogger? Or for us to spend some time trying to figure this whole thing out and put it up, et cetera, and
Well, that's
knowing the right
Susanna's
way?
point.
Yeah.
You've heard the
So,
work.
so I'm gonna say a couple of things and then I'm gonna let Darcy jump in because she was clapping to my response, which I always appreciate. At some point in time, every business owner needs to decide what to outsource, but I always say before you outsource your bookkeeping, before you outsource your writing, before you outsource anything, do it yourself first. So you can feel it, you can sense it, you can, it goes through your DNA, and then you're ready to give it to someone else. I always say, don't just outsource something without experiencing it yourself first. So do the blogging yourself. Think, I hate spending my time this. I know what it feels like. Now I'm ready to outsource it. And then, then you call me. And Darcy's just laughing. So I'm gonna call her.
I'm absolutely hysterical. So doing what I do, which is branding, right? The visual brand piece, I get that all the time. Like, I can design my own brand. Good for you. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and try it. Go ahead and put that website up there. And then if you don't feel that there's a value in hiring a professional to do it and you're really happy with what you did, rock on. But people get paid to do what they do best. People who do what they do best and have extra money should hire other people to do what they do best. If you don't have the money and you have to do it yourself, then presentations like what you just gave are super helpful. At least learn from an expert. Like if you can't afford to blog, hire someone to blog, or you can't afford to hire someone to do your brand, there's so many ways to go online and learn from people who do this professionally. So my suggestion to anyone, whether you're a solopreneur or a business owner, is if you have the money and you're not good at something, let a professional do it for you. Pay, because to your point, Ted, you're wasting your hourly rate, which for me is $200 an hour. Why am I going to do that if I don't write well? I mean, I can give people ideas, but why am I going to waste that money? However, when I started out, I did everything myself. And if I didn't feel good about it, I would read up. There's tutorials. You could, sit in on sessions like this and learn everything you can and just try to be the best you can be at something that does not come naturally to you. But I was laughing because if you have the money, of course. And absolutely, you should hire Susana because she sounds like a fabulous expert in this field. So yeah,
Thank you.
super great presentation. Thank you so much
Yes.
for sharing.
Thank
This is
you.
really a general question, a general discussion point regarding business. You should do what you do best that attracts clients to your products or services. And you'll find that when you then hire experts, even though like you've done something, like I've done some marketing and branding, and now I've hired Darcy, and the thing that comes into my mind is, oh my God, she is so much better at this than I am. It's not my strength. I have other strengths. But I mean, even if let's say you're an attorney, most attorneys are good writers. They can do this, but they're much better off spending their time generating billable hours and giving advice
Right. It's not
than
just
promoting their services.
it's not just like, are you good at it or not? That is definitely the top level. But you could be a really good writer. You can write magnificent blogs. But if you only have, and I run across people who said, oh, last year I wrote 3 or 4 blogs. I'm like, 4 the whole year? They're like, well, I just don't have the time. And I said, well, if you hired someone to do it, it's now their like it's my deadline now to write 2 blogs for you every month. Now it's you're paying the money, but now you're guaranteed to have 24 instead of 4. So it's, if you have the money, great. If you're good at it, great. But, don't be great at it, but then never do it because you can't put the time into it. So that would just be really sad.
And there's a leadership lesson there too, because if you're growing your business and you're trying to do all the aspects of it, you're not delegating. And when you don't delegate, you don't grow. You're your own limiting factor. And
Absolutely.
so, why put the limits on the growth of your business by trying to do everything yourself?
Yeah, and I might add to that, if you can't afford a branding firm, there are branding freelancers. Like for every scale of your business, there are people that do these things, either branding or marketing or digital advertising, that are solopreneurs who can work with another solopreneur. And then there are firms. So, you have to spend money to make money. That's what people kept telling me when I started my business. So if you can't jump in and start with an agency, or if you can't afford whatever Susana's rates are, I have no idea, but I'd say she's well worth it. There's, find someone that's at least a professional in that topic and let them do it for you instead of you doing it yourself to whatever you can afford. And then as you grow, you can graduate to the people you'd really love to work with.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point.
So Susana, thank you. Do we have
Oh,
any
thank
final
you.
questions? I'm going to send Susana the list of everyone that was here, so you can, also she can follow up with you, give you, share slides or anything like that you request. So she's a great person just to chat about this and talk about this and answer any further questions that might come up, as you think more about this. great job, Susanna. Really a lot of information, really,
Very good.
really helpful to,
Mhm.
for us to like kind of have a roadmap for doing these things. It's not as scary as I thought. So,
Really great. Never seen a presentation on blogging before, so that's
Oh, awesome.
the original.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you'll never, when I was creating the timers in PowerPoint, I was actually trying to get the Jeopardy, that 1 minute Jeopardy thing sound bite in there. And I just couldn't do it. And I thought, you know what, it's annoying. Like I want people to actually think about their topics and their headlines. So it was a silent timer, but I was this close to doing the Jeopardy thing.
Well, none of us will ever watch Jeopardy the same again.
Exactly. I'd be like,
Mhm.
oh God, I have to write my blog.
okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone,
right.
for
Thank
joining
you,
us
everybody.
today, and hope you join us
Bye.
for future workshops. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jonathan. Thank you, Susanna.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, Susanna, great job. You want to stay on for a sec?
Sure.
Okay, good. You can unshare.
Oh, forgot about that. Boom. There we go.
Okay, really good. Yeah, here, I'll stop the recording. Stop recording.
I think Vince must have left for lunch.